ओम अज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपः कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकम्। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरोः श्रीयुतापदकमलं श्रीगुरून् वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं सागरजातं सहगणा रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनासहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधाकृष्णपादान् सहगणललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च। हे कृष्ण करुणा सिंधु दीनबंधु जगतपते गोपेशा गोपिका कांत राधा कांत नमोस्तुते तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये वंशकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद। हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्ण पृष्ठाय पुतले श्रीधराधनाथ स्वामी। नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्ण पृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्ति वेदांत स्वामी नाम नमस्ते सरस्वती देवी गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे विशेष कम करोति वाचालं भंगुं लंघयते गिरिं यत्कृपातमहं वन्दे श्रीगुरुं दीनतारिणं परमानन्दमाधवं श्रीचैतन्य ईश्वरम्। हरि ओम तत्सत। हरे कृष्ण। So welcome to everyone. So we are continuing our journey on the 6th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita entitled Dhyan Yoga. We have gone through the first 9 verses where Krishna has not only summarized his previous teachings with respect to yoga, but he has also especially emphasized the key understanding that ultimately yoga is about controlling the mind. Yoga is not just a system of exercise, not just about chanting some mantras, not just about doing some austerities, following some techniques. Yes, all these things may be there, but the ultimate purpose of all of this is to purify the contaminated consciousness. The Yoga Sutras of Patanjali Muni, he defines yoga in a beautiful way. He says, Yoga Chitta Vritti Nirodha. Yoga is the controlling of the materialistic tendencies of the mind. Yoga Chitta Vritti, the tendencies, the material tendencies. Because our Chitta currently is full of materialistic tendencies. Chitta Vritti Nirodha, it is the control of the materialistic tendencies of the mind. So Krishna emphasizes in the beginning of the 6th chapter that Arjun, it is finally about controlling your mind. He says, we have spoken about how one should be detached from the fruits of activities, how one must always be free from attachment to materialistic desires, attachment to the fruits of activities, and one must always perform all activities in connection to the divine. But Krishna also emphasizes again, the beginning of the 6th chapter, that Arjun, this is not possible without controlling the mind. The mind is the central instrument or organ to be controlled, to be able to achieve this. Because even if one is intellectually convinced that this is the path ahead, many of us may say, yes, Bhagavad Gita speaks this, from now onwards, I'm giving up all my materialistic tendencies. From now onwards, I'm going to do everything in relation to God. And within 2 minutes of having said that, our mind has already gone all over the world and thought of all kinds of sense enjoyment. So what happened? We thought we were convinced. What happened? We thought we were very clear. The point is, unless the contaminated mind is purified, unless the contaminated mind is purified, the materialistic tendencies of the soul will continue. Because the impressions of the previous materialistic activities are so strong, and all these impressions are accumulated like dust settled on the mirror of consciousness. So one has to clean this dust. Otherwise, what happens? This dust will unsettle and it clouds the vision. It clouds the perception of the self. Remember, we discussed this analogy last time, that when the mirror is full of dust, one cannot see one's own reflection clearly in the mirror. And that is where the consciousness has to be purified. It's the same as Chitta Vritti Nirodha. At the end of the day, it is about purifying. Purifying means what? Purify from what? The mind in its pure state must be situated in pure understanding of the self and its relationship with the Lord. And when it is in that pure state, when the water of consciousness is transparent, or when the mirror of the consciousness, which is the mind, is free from all dust, the soul, the self is reflected very clearly in that mirror. And one can perceive himself very clearly. And that's why Krishna says in the beginning of the 6th chapter, Arjun, when the mind is controlled, the super soul is already reached. Because when the mind is controlled, it means the mind is purified. And when the mind is purified, when the dust is gone, when the water is cleaned of all impurities and restored to its own pristine nature, the mirror of the chitta reflects the true nature of the soul. And the soul as well as the super soul, the Paramatma, can be clearly seen within the purified mind. So this is very important. Why is this important to understand? Because unless one understands that yoga, self-realization, ultimately is about purifying the consciousness. When the consciousness is purified, two things happen. One is the attachment to matter will gradually go, and as the soul's pure nature is getting revived, uncovered because of the removal of contamination, the attraction of the soul towards the Lord also manifests. From its dormant state, it starts becoming active. Nitya Siddha Krishna Prema Sadhya Kabinoy Shravan Adi Shuddha Chitte Karohe Uday. That the love for Krishna is dormant within the soul, but when that love is awakened, when one chants and hears about the Lord, does spiritual sadhana, that love is awakened within the heart. Shravan Adi Shuddha Chitte. When the Chitta becomes Shuddha, the mirror of the consciousness is purified of the dirt. At that time, the pure kirtan of the name is immediately able to invoke and reactivate the loving devotion for the Lord, which is inherently situated within the soul. Bhakti is not something which we have to get from outside. It is there, but currently it is dormant. It has to be activated. Just like every piece of wood, every piece of dry wood, it has fire inside it. Doesn't it have? Yes. Huh? But if you just take wood and keep it under your pot to cook, nothing is going to happen. It's not going to cook. You'll say, oh, it has fire inside. Why it is not cooking? It's because fire is there in the wood, but it is in a dormant state. Unless that fire is made manifest from a dormant state to an active manifest state, It's not going to start showing its properties. It's not going to start giving off heat and light. So that dormant potential, that dormant energy, the dormant fire within the firewood has to be activated. So how is it activated? When the firewood comes in contact with fire, the fire element within the firewood gets activated. Yes? When the firewood is exposed to fire for some time, not that you just keep and take out, then nothing will happen. When you leave it in the fire for some time, what happens? The fire element which is within the firewood gets activated and the firewood catches fire. Yes? Similarly, the soul, when it is exposed to the spiritual environment in contact with the Lord through hearing and chanting, associating, serving, Shravana Adi Shuddha Chitte Kuroho Uday, it becomes manifest. That is the process. So Krishna is saying ultimately it's about controlling the mind, because without controlling the mind, neither can one be free from material contamination, nor can one cultivate a positive attraction to the Supreme Lord without controlling the mind. So that is very, very central. A yogi who has made his mind his friend can achieve the greatest of spiritual results. But one who fails to control his mind, the mind remains his worst enemy. Because mind is such an instrument, it can be the cause of deliverance, it can be the cause of fall down. The mind attached to matter is the cause of fall down. The mind detached from matter and attached to Krishna is the medium of advancement. So very beautifully, Krishna is emphasizing that after all this yoga, don't think, Arjuna, you can just simply switch channel. Just because you have studied Bhagavad Gita, you can switch channel. Once you study Bhagavad Gita, at least you are intellectually convinced of the goal. But to be able to elevate yourself to that platform, you have to go through a process of purification of your consciousness. And that is the process of sadhana, isn't it? Sometimes we get frustrated and give up spiritual life immediately because we hear Bhagavad Gita. We think that, yes, from now on, I'm going to give up all selfish desire and I'm going to do everything for the Lord. So when I first read Bhagavad Gita, I thought that is what I will do. Yes, now I know. I was a young boy that time. And within 5 minutes, I realized, and I became frustrated that I realized that no matter how hard I'm trying, within minutes, I'm going back to the same materialistic tendencies. And then I was wondering why this is happening. And actually, the answer is obvious. It's because the mind, which is full of dirt, which is full of the negative samskaras of so many lifetimes, will drag our consciousness. The moment we are a little bit inattentive, it will drag our consciousness back into materialistic. It is natural. It will happen to everybody. That's why becoming spiritual, again and again, I'm mentioning this. Why I'm mentioning this? So that you all do not become frustrated. And say, no, this is too difficult. Prabhuji told very nicely, but it's very difficult. Obviously, it is difficult. Yes. Because we have to go through a process. Just like a person who is 110 kilos in weight cannot say that I want to work so hard that I will become 65 kilos tomorrow. No, you have to go through a process. Slowly, the fat is burnt. Slowly. So that sadhana needs. So there is some patience needed. There is some discipline needed. There is some commitment needed. There is faith needed in the instructions of the gym instructor. Sometimes you see the weight increasing rather than decreasing. Once it happened to me, then I went to my instructor. I said, what is this? You said I will lose weight, I'm increasing. Then he explained to me, no. Please understand. You are losing fat, but parallelly you are gaining muscles. But because the weight of the muscles density is higher than that of fat, it appears that for some time you are gaining, but actually your fat is burning. In the long run, when the muscle grows, it contributes to faster burning of fat. And in the longer run, you will see that your fat is reducing. So one needs guidance of those who are expert in the science. So it is important to understand all these principles. So Krishna is telling Arjun in verse 10, Krishna says, that spiritual life is ultimately about connecting to me all the time. And it is not possible to connect to me all the time unless one is detached from matter. So he says, Yogi yunjita satatam atmanam rahasi sthitah ekaki yata chittatma nirashir aparigraha. A spiritualist, a transcendentalist should always engage his body, his mind and his soul in relationship with the Supreme. Means at every level he must be connected to the Supreme. And to be able to do that, he should live alone in a secluded place and should always carefully control his mind. Now, Krishna is beginning to describe the mechanical Ashtanga Yoga process. If you remember, when we were discussing this the last week, I mentioned that Krishna now in this chapter is going to explain about Ashtanga Yoga. He is going to explain that if somebody is convinced about achieving this detachment from matter and attachment to the Lord, what are the possible paths? So one path Krishna is explaining here in this chapter is a mechanical, disciplined process. Of course, all processes are disciplined, but a mechanical process by which one forces his mind to be detached from matter and attached to the Lord. So Krishna is explaining that. But there is another process, which is actually a very natural process to achieve the same result. And we'll discuss about that subsequently, because after the 6th chapter, Krishna, at the end of the 6th chapter and beyond the 6th chapter, Krishna goes into that process, because that's a natural, more simple process. But sadly, the simple process is difficult for many people. So how can something which is simple be difficult? Because that simplicity requires that adoption of that simple process requires a very special element of special faith in the Supreme Personality of Godhead to be able to take that process. But those who are not so fortunate are unfortunately forced, not actually forced, but they themselves force themselves, because they give up the other simpler path. They adopt this more painful and arduous process. So we will discuss both, but today, of course, we'll focus, because 6th chapter is more focused on the mechanical process. So how, if one is not directly attracted to the Lord, those are directly attracted to the Lord, very easy for them, relatively, very easy. But for those who are not attached, they have some faith that there is a God, but they're not attached to the Lord. They don't have their heart attracted to the Lord. They take up to a mechanical process of detachment from matter and attachment to Krishna. So Krishna says, if you want to adopt such a mechanical process, it's a very systematic process. If you follow it properly, you will definitely reach the goal. Yes, it is more arduous, more painful, more longer. Yes, but it is possible. It is difficult, but possible. And later in the chapter, Arjuna also gives his commentary on this process after he hears the whole process. We will go to that probably in the next class. We'll probably not go that far today. We'll probably discuss around 15-20 verses today if possible. So Krishna starts the description itself by saying, for a yogi who adopts the Ashtanga Yoga process, who always wants to remain connected to the Lord in body, mind, and soul, first thing he must do is he should live alone in a secluded place. Alone in a secluded place means you cannot stay in Pines condominium, Swazana loft, Kalanagar, wherever we all are situated. in our respective homes, alone in a secluded place, typically like a forest, an ashram. So even before Krishna started describing the process itself, we have become disqualified. Why? Because one should carefully control his mind. This process, being mechanical, requires very attentive, careful control of the mind. Because if one is not careful, easily the mind will get distracted. And in such a secluded place, the person should be free from all desires and feelings of possessiveness. Then Krishna starts explaining the mechanical process. Having stayed alone in a secluded place, a secluded place, of course, doesn't mean just being alone. You cannot say I am alone, but I have a Wi-Fi connection and I have a smartphone and I'm chatting on WhatsApp and talking to my friends. Now, that is not called alone. Alone means practically no interaction with the outside world. Because in Kali Yuga, actually, the sad reality is even though there are 10 people around us, we are alone. Yeah, because we are never with those who are around us. We're always the sad reality of the digital world. Anyway, so in verses 11 and 12, Krishna describes the process. He says, Suchaudeshe pratisthapya sthiram asanam atmanah natyucha nati uchritam nati nicham shailajina kushottaram tatraikagram manah kritva yata chittendriya kriya उपविश्यासने युंजाद yogam atma vishuddhaye. Atma vishuddhaye, yoga is done for atma vishuddhi, for purification. How is it done? Suchau deshe pratisthapya, in a very clean and pure place. Especially such yogic processes are recommended to be performed in pure holy places, on the bank of the Ganges, in a holy dham, in the Himalayas, where so many other sages are there, like Badrinath, we went. So many sages are staying in the caves in the Himalayan mountains. Sucha Udeshe Pratisthapya Sthiram Asanam Atmana. Be situated on a stable asan. First of all, many people are jumping to meditation, but even before one can go into meditation, one must be able to sit in a sthira asan. Do you understand what the meaning of sthira asan means? Stable sitting posture. Because one is required to meditate and do so many other such practices for hours together in a day. The sad state of Kali Yuga people is, forget about meditation. Even if you were to sit in a class where somebody is speaking, we cannot sit without being fidgety for 10 minutes. Most of us, even if we sit on the floor, will not be comfortable. We'll be continuously changing our position, our legs, up, down. So, sthira asanam, nati uchritam, nati nicham. Neither the asan should be too high nor too low. One should have an asan with a chaila ajina, a soft cloth, and a deer skin. And sitting on that asan, one should control his mind and senses and execute yoga. So it's very important to sit, and that's why even before one can come to other stages, one is recommended to perform the various yoga asana, because a healthy body is needed even before one can meditate. If the body is not healthy, how will one be able to sit properly in a posture for a long time, and how will the mind be able to focus? So there are so many dependencies to be able to follow this Ashtanga process. Be alone, away from home, in a pure place, seated on a particular kind of asan, and one must have already trained himself to sit in that asana position, a lotus position, for hours together. Then samam kaya shiro grivam dharayannachalam sthirah sampreksha nasikagram swam dishashchanavalokayan prashantatma vigatabhir brahmachari vrate stitah manas संयम्य मच्चित्तो युक्त आसीत मत्परः. Then when one is seated in that position, one should hold one's body straight. The back must be straight. The neck, the head, the spine must be in one straight line. And one must steadily look at the tip of the nose to be able to focus and concentrate it. And one must subdue his mind, free from fear and observing complete celibacy. One should meditate on me, Krishna says, on him within the heart, making me the ultimate goal of life. So here Krishna is also explaining what meditation is. Krishna is not saying empty your mind, observe the breath. He's not talking about that as the process of meditation. Those things may be okay to calm down the mind a bit, but that is not categorized as meditation as far as yoga process is concerned. As far as yoga process meant for spiritual realization is concerned, meditation means meditating on Lord Vishnu, Lord Krishna, Lord Narayan within the heart. This process is actually described in greater detail in the Srimad Bhagavat, where it is even described how one should conceive of that form of the Lord. When one meditates on him in the heart, one must meditate on that form. So it is said Lord Vishnu is situated within the heart of as Paramatma, of the size of the thumb. The size of the Lord within the heart is the size of our thumb. So is a form of Lord Vishnu this tall, 3 inches odd. One should meditate on the Lord like that. Of course, here in this chapter, the Lord is briefly hinting at the process. So all other meditations are not considered spiritual. They are just considered some means to pacify or try to alleviate the mind from miseries. So one must meditate and one must also be thoroughly detached from all kinds of sense enjoyment. Especially, it is very important to maintain complete celibacy, which means effectively those who are in the grihastha ashram, family life, married life, it's practically impossible for them to follow this process. Here Krishna himself is saying one must be alone and have complete celibacy. Sadly, nowadays, so many people just adopt whatever aspects of Ashtanga Yoga that suit them, and whatever is not suited for them, they give them up and they think that they have become Ashtanga Yogis. They sit like this in an asana for 15 minutes. They imagine some meditative process taught to them by somebody who's not trained in a proper parampara, and they think they are doing some meditational yoga. But just like if you take a recipe and you say, I will only use those ingredients from the recipe which are readily available in my home, I will not go out and buy anything. Can you actually make the item that you plan to make? Yeah. If somebody gives me the recipe of biryani and I say, okay, I'm not going to take too much trouble. I have rice at home. I have water to cook the rice. I have salt, which is part of the recipe. I have some carrots with me. Yeah. And I have some a little bit of ghee with me. But all these other spices, tej patta, garam masala, biryani masala, all these things. It's okay. I'm following the recipe. So whatever is convenient, I will follow. So at the end, will you get biryani? You will only get cooked rice sprinkled with ghee and garnished with carrots. That's all you're going to get. You're not going to get biryani. If you want to call it biryani and everybody around you also wants to call it biryani, that is your problem. That is how we have made a mockery of yoga in today's time. We just, we think like yoga and spiritual life is like a buffet. Buffet means you can just go and say, okay, I like this. Okay, take one serving of this. Okay, this is nice. Take one serving of this. Spiritual processes don't work like this. That is why it is so important for spiritual process. Krishna has already explained the fourth chapter. Properly follow the instructions of the spiritual master. If you do not follow the process properly in its entirety and you don't even know what items from the recipe are absolutely key and what are optional, that also you wouldn't know without the instructions of the guru. And you think the optional items as mandatory and the mandatory items as optional, you end up with a flawed outcome. So Krishna has already said mandatory for Ashtanga Yoga, stay alone. Mandatory to stay in complete celibacy. And mandatory to be totally devoid of fear. So just because you're staying in the forest, if you're fearful, how are you going to meditate? If you're sitting in the forest and trying to meditate, you'll hear all kinds of sounds all around you, day and night. If you're going to be terrified by every sound that comes, you should forget your meditation. You cannot do anything. So fearlessness is very important for those who are adopting this process. And now why I'm mentioning all this is we can understand increasingly how difficult it is to follow the exact recipe of this Ashtanga Yoga process. Krishna continues, says, Yunjan evam sadatmanam yogi niyatamanasah shantim nirvana paramam matsam sthanam adhigacchati. If one is able to meditate on me like this, following all these principles, yama, niyama, asana, pranayam, pratyahar, dharana, dhyan, all these limbs gradually. Here Krishna is not going into all the details of the Ashtanga Yoga process because he's giving a brief summary of the process. If you go through the sequence, there are so many do's and don'ts additionally there. There is yama and niyama. Yama are the do's, niyama are the don'ts. Asteya, brahmacharya, aparigraha. And there is satyam, damaha, shaucham. There are so many do's and there are so many don'ts. So many important principles to be followed. So in all yogas, there are always do's and don'ts. And why there are do's and don'ts? We do those things which will help us to be attached to the Lord, and we don't do those things which take us away from the Lord and make us materialistic. That's the very simple principle. These rules are not made whimsically. They're all based on this principle. Smartavya satatam vishnum vismartavya najatuchit sarve vidhi nishedha syur etayor eva kinkara. Ultimately, all rules and regulations are subservient to the principle of always remembering Krishna and never forgetting Krishna. So Krishna says in 6.15, if one practices proper control of the body, mind and activities like I have described, the mind will gradually become purified and regulated. And once it becomes fully purified of all material attraction, and through meditation on the Lord, one reawakens one's spiritual consciousness, one can altogether be free from all material association and be transferred to the spiritual world of Vaikuntha. Mat samsthanam adhigacchati. Samsthana means the kingdom of God, the spiritual sky. Again, Krishna doesn't say here that you become nothing, you destroy your identity, you become God, you become one with me. Krishna doesn't say anything like that. He says, Mat samsthanam, where I am situated, that abode. Tad dhamam paramam mama. Elsewhere in the Gita, the Lord says So a perfect yogi, the Lord has described as one who is mat chitta, whose consciousness is always fixed on the Lord. Mat paraha, who is fully surrendered to the Lord. Such a person achieves mat sthanam, the spiritual abode, Krishna Loka, Goloka, Vrindavan. Golok eva nivasatya kilatma bhuto govindamadi purusham tamam bhajan. The supreme original personality of Godhead is residing in the spiritual realm of Golok Vrindavan, within the spiritual realm, beyond all matter. And when one attains that place, that is when one becomes actually free from the cycle of birth and death. Tam eva viditva mrityum eti. Having known him, one becomes free from death forever. So Krishna has summarized this process. And then Krishna gives one guiding principle for the yogis. Now, this is a very interesting guiding principle. This guiding principle is applicable not just for the Ashtanga yogis, but all kind of yogis, including the Bhakti yogi. So please listen carefully. In 6.16, Krishna says, Na ati ashnatah tu yoga asti tu yogosti न चैकांतम अनश्नतः न चाति स्वप्नशीलस्य जाग्रतो नैव चार्जन. There is no possibility of one becoming a yogi, O Arjun, if one eats too much or eats too little, sleeps too much or does not sleep enough. It's a very interesting statement Krishna says. Again, Krishna says one cannot become a yogi if one eats too much. That we can all understand. But Krishna says one cannot become a yogi if one eats too little. Too much fasting, too little, the body becomes undernourished. Also, one cannot become a yogi. If one sleeps too much, one cannot become a yogi. One will go into mode of ignorance. But if one sleeps too little, that is also not good for yoga. So Krishna is making a very interesting point. He's saying yoga is not a process of going to extremes. Yoga is a process of balance. It's the process of following whatever is just adequate to keep the body and mind healthy so that our life's energy can be focused on spiritual pursuits. If one eats too little or sleeps too less, one will become ill, one will become unhealthy. How then can one practice spiritual life properly? That's why eating proper, healthy, sattvic food, doing proper exercise and taking care of the body, sleeping well enough to have a healthy body and a healthy mind are all essential elements of having a healthy body, a healthy mind, and healthy emotions. So at least 6 to 7 hours sleep is required. Then Krishna says, Yuktahara viharasya, yukta chestasya karmasu, yukta swapnavabodhasya, yogo bhavati dukkhaha. The yogi can become free from all miseries by practicing yoga if he is regulated. Regulated means he does in a balanced way. What he does in a balanced way is eating, his sleeping, his recreation, vihar, and also any work that he needs to do to maintain his body. Chestasya karmasu. Chestasya karmasu means whatever work is doing for the maintenance of his body. If he's performing everything to the right level that is necessary to keep his body and mind and intelligence in good shape, then you can overcome the miseries of material life very quickly. So extravagance is prohibited and too much austerity is also prohibited. Austerity must be done according to the scriptures under the guidance of the Guru to the point that will help us to detach ourselves from matter. But excessive austerity also is not a factor which is conducive to spiritual advancement, especially in the path of yada viniyatam chittam atmani evavatishthate nispriha sarvakamebhyo yukta ityuchyate tada. So a person practices yoga, like what I've said, when he has disciplined his mind properly, he has controlled his mind and senses, he actually becomes situated in a spiritual position. And how does one know that one is actually situated in transcendence, in spiritual position? Because one becomes free from all material desires. At that point, one is said to be properly well established. Yukta. Yukta means connected. Connected to the Supreme Truth. Again, Krishna is emphasizing, if you're well connected to the Supreme Truth, your attraction for material desires would have already gone away. Correct? Sometimes some of us become so attracted towards God. Sometimes we see God, we hear one bhajan, we start crying. Oh God, I love you so much. And 10 minutes after that, we hear our favorite film song and we start dancing in an excited way. We totally forget God, we get carried away into, the next day morning again we remember God and say, God, I love you so much. Within few minutes, again we get distracted into again eating this and that. So this is not called a person who's yukta. If we want to understand whether we are truly yukta, a person who has truly developed a connection to the Lord, a lasting connection, a stable connection, will be devoid of material desire. Again, this is not something which is achieved overnight. So please do not, if you introspect, if we introspect ourselves right now, obviously we will miserably fail. Yes, almost all of us will miserably fail. But that's okay. It is expected, right? I mean, when we are in a kindergarten class, we cannot expect, that we can pass a 10th standard examination. So let's not have any undue expectations like this. Otherwise, we frustrate ourselves. So first thing important about spiritual life is to be real. And to be real means to begin by understanding currently we are very far away. But we can very soon make rapid spiritual advancement. Yes, that's possible. If we adopt the process with all seriousness and sincerity, yes, it's possible. But right now we are far. And we have to gradually work on purifying our consciousness. And how we understand we are actually properly spiritually situated, we fail to get attracted to material desires, devoid of all material desires, and situated in transcendence. One is said to be well established in yoga. Again, this is a manual process. Yeah. Again, we will talk about the natural process a little later. The natural process makes it so much more easier. We'll discuss the natural process in the next class, not today. Then Krishna says, Yatha Deepo Nivatastho Nengate Somapa Smrita Yogino Yata Chittasya Junjato Yogamatmanaha. If the mind is controlled, then one can focus one's mind on God without distraction. Currently, why we are not able to focus our mind on God without distraction? And we can focus for a few seconds, for a few minutes, and the mind runs away somewhere else. Why? Just like when there is a light, when there's a lamp, let's say there's a lamp. If you put a lamp in a place where there's a lot of wind, what happens? The flame of the lamp will sway. Sometimes it may even go off. Similarly, the lamp of our consciousness, the flame of our consciousness is continuously disturbed by the winds of material desires. And it can never be steady. The consciousness cannot be steady on God. But when the soul becomes purified, Krishna is saying, and the soul, the yogi becomes steady in meditation, the consciousness, the flame of his consciousness becomes steady just like a lamp in a windless place. It does not waver, remains fixed. Yes? A lamp when there's no wind, the flame is so steady. That is how the consciousness of the advanced yogi becomes fixed on Krishna without deviation, because the winds of material desire do not waver his consciousness. Very beautiful example. Very beautiful example. Then Krishna says 6.20 to 23, 4 verses. We'll read them and briefly discuss them. I think we'll end after this probably. Let's see. Yatro paramate chittam niruddham yoga sevaya yatra chaivatmanatmanam pashyan atmani tushyati sukham atyantikam yattad buddhigrayam atindriyam veti yatra न चैवायम स्थितश्चलति तत्वतः यम लब्ध्वा चापरम लाभम मन्यतेनाधिकं ततः यस्मिन् स्थितो न दुःखेन गुरुनापि विचाल्यते तम विद्या दुःख संयोग वियोगम योग संगितम. Krishna is explaining in this set of verses the state of samadhi. When the soul becomes purified, when the chitta becomes purified of all material desires, when the lamp of the consciousness becomes steady, one becomes so fixed in one's focused meditation on the Lord that his meditation graduates from dhyan and enters into the stage of samadhi or trance. Dhyan means one is able to focus meditation on the Lord for some time. There is a definition given in the scriptures. We're not going to do that today. The definition: if you can, without distraction, focus the mind for so long, then you have entered dhyan. Before dhyan, there is a dharana. So there are various such measurements of time given. Trance or samadhi is when one can be absorbed without distraction for a long period of time. And that is possible only when one is totally freed and restrained from all material mental activities. At that stage of trance, when one is fully able to see himself and the Lord very clearly, one is able to experience such spiritual bliss in the realization of the soul and the Lord. Boundless spiritual happiness one experiences. And one can remain in that feeling of the presence of the Lord. Is such a wonderful feeling. It's so profound, it's so beautiful, that having experienced that, the yogi feels, oh, this is so nice, this is so wonderful. No achievement in the material world can even compare to a millionth part of what I'm experiencing. Cannot compare, because the quality of the spiritual pleasure is so high that even a little bit of that spiritual pleasure is clearly seen as thousands of times better than the highest of the material pleasures. And that is why, having once experienced that, one never departs from the truth. And he thinks, this is such a wonderful experience. There is nothing better than this. One never goes away from his connection to the Lord, because one becomes firmly convinced by practical realization about the profound spiritual experience that one is having. And once one has come to that position, one is never shaken. No matter what happens in the external world, no matter what happens, difficulties in one's life, because he's feeling that inner connection to the Lord, one remains satisfied stable and peaceful even in the most greatest of all difficulties. And this state is actually the state of full freedom from material contact. And Krishna concludes this section, this subsection, by saying, Sanischayena yoktavyo yogo anirvinna chetasa sankalpa prabhavan kamams tyaktva sarvana sheshatah manasai gramam viniyamya samantatah. That is why Krishna says this is such a wonderful attainment. That's why one must continue to work towards this direction of complete success with full determination and faith. One should not be distracted by material desires, where the mind tricks one into thinking, oh, maybe I can enjoy here, maybe I can enjoy here, maybe material life is good, maybe why am I working so hard trying this spiritual life in the forest without WhatsApp, without family, without this, without that. The yogi may also sometimes be tempted because it's not that overnight he experiences spiritual bliss. Sometimes it takes years, sometimes even decades to experience a profound spiritual experience. So one requires to continue with firm faith. That is why satsanga is important. If one doesn't have proper sadhu sangha, then very easily one will become discouraged. And one will again revive one's materialistic tendencies and say, okay, anyway, I tried for 2 weeks. It's no good. I'm going back. Bye. You all continue in the forest. I'm going. Of course, for those who are practicing yoga in the forest, it is so much more difficult than those who are devotees of the Lord, who have developed attraction for the Lord. And that we will discuss later, maybe next week. But the point is, those who are doing Ashtanga yoga in the forest, that process is very, very challenging because it can be very tough. It can be very lonely. It can be a big struggle. Shanai Shanai Uparamed Buddhya Dhriti Grihitaya Atma Samstham Manakritva Nakinchid Apichintayet. Gradually, step by step, Krishna says, one should become situated in trance. So this is not an overnight process. Gradually, step by step, with full conviction, gradually one establishes one's consciousness to be fixed on the soul without any attraction to matter. Again, Krishna is emphasizing this is a gradual process of spiritual attainment, where yato nischalati manas chanchalam astiram tatastato nyamyaitad atmani eva vasham nayet. As you are trying to gradually control your mind and fix your mind on the Lord, again and again the mind will go away towards material things. You will run towards so many material attractions that you had in the past. But whenever it goes, the yogi must make an effort to bring it back under the control by using spiritual intelligence. It's not easy. A lot of determination and persistence is needed. But he who manages to become persistent, he who continues with determination, he can definitely achieve the supreme destination by being fixed on me. Such a person transcends the mode of material nature, especially the mode of rajas, which is characterized by attraction towards material enjoyment. And he realizes his spiritual nature and his qualitative nature to be similar to that of the supreme truth. And when one actually comes to that state, one becomes free from all kinds of karma. युञ्जनेवं सदात्मानं योगी विगतकल्मषः सुखेन ब्रह्म संस्पर्शम अत्यंतं सुखमश्नुते. When the yogi continuously with determination continues his spiritual practice, he gradually but surely becomes free from all material contamination and achieves that perfect state of happiness, where one connects to the Lord and realizes the Lord. Arjuna, it is not easy, it is arduous, but if one remains steadfast, continuously brings the mind in control, and works very hard, it is possible to attain. And when one actually reaches that state of perfect consciousness, Arjun, remember, like what I told you, the real perfection of consciousness is one comes to the realization, the actual vision, not just a theoretical understanding, but the actual vision that the yogi can see that all living beings are in me and I, the Supreme Lord, am in them. The yogi can see me present everywhere. That is the vision of one who is fully self-realized. Sarvabhutastamatmanam sarvabhutani chatmani ikshate yoga yuktatma sarvatra samadarshanaha. Krishna has explained this point many times in the Gita, many times in the Bhagavad as well, as the culmination of spiritual vision. Yo mam pashyati sarvatra sarvam cha mai pashyati tasyaham na pranashyami Sachamena pranashyati. A person who has achieved this vision, where he sees me everywhere and sees everything is in me. Whenever yogi achieves that vision, that vision is perfect consciousness, Arjuna, because in that state, the yogi always remains connected to me. He never forgets me and I never forget him. He remains always connected to me. I am never lost, Krishna says, nor is he ever lost to. That is that beautiful vision. Sarvabhuta stita yo mam bhajati ekatvamasthitah sarvatha vartamanopi sayogi mai vartate. In that state, the yogi understands and realizes that each and every soul is actually a part and parcel of the Supreme. It is qualitatively same as the Supreme. Of course, the Supreme is unlimited, Vibhu. The soul is Anu, but qualitatively, the soul is a part and parcel of the Lord. And that is why he remains always connected by understanding that the soul is always a part and parcel of Supreme Truth. Atmaupamanyena sarvatra samam pashyati yorjuna sukham va yadi va dukkham sayogi paramo matah. When he develops this vision, when he understands every living entity is inherently spiritual and part and parcel of God, at a spiritual level, the yogi is able to see the true equality of all beings. If you remember, in the 5th chapter also, Krishna gives an example of this vision. He says, Brahmani gavi hastini shuni chaiva sopakecha panditaha samadarshana. A learned person is able to see equal vision. The cow, the dog, the elephant, the Brahmana, the Chandala, all of them with equal vision, because he sees that the same soul is situated in all living beings. So that kind of vision he achieves. Okay, so we're going to stop here, because at this point Krishna stops his explanation of the Ashtanga Yoga process and the attainment of Ashtanga Yoga process. And now Arjuna is going to start his part by asking some questions to Krishna on the Ashtanga Yoga process. So that we will discuss in the following week. So we're going to take a pause here. Yeah. Okay. So Krishna has described here the Ashtanga Yoga process of how to remain detached from matter and develop one's relationship with the Lord through a mechanical process, which goes through the 8 limbs: Yama, Niyama, Asana, Pranayam, Pratyahar, Dharana, Dhyana, and Samadhi. So one eventually comes to that state of perfect realization. Okay, yes, we have done 27 also. Okay, so any questions?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Yes, Sudhesindra Prabhu, Hare Krishna.
Prabhu, you just mentioned that the as per text 518, what is a humble sage sees everybody with that equal vision and so on. So the point is that he sees everybody as equal because of the presence of the soul, or 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 even the soul and the what is that super soul.
Both. He sees that everybody is spiritually equal,
Okay, thanks.
and he also sees that the same Supreme Lord is present. Yeah. See, ultimately, every living entity is part and parcel of the Lord. So, at the beginning stage, of course, one sees that ultimately, even though the soul, because of his karma, is situated in different bodies, it is spiritually same, right? The soul in the dog and the soul in our body. The soul in a dog's body may have a different karma at the moment, but karma is still superficial to the soul. The karma also changes, but ultimately, at a spiritual level, the soul of the dog and the soul of the human are not different. It's not that there are dog souls and human souls, and tree souls and deer souls and cat souls, right? No, the soul is a soul. The soul takes one of the 8.4 million species based on its karma, its desires. So he sees that, and he also sees that every soul is accompanied by the Paramatma, and that the soul is a part and parcel of the Supreme Truth. Yeah. So yes, he sees it spiritually. Again, like what we said, right? At an external practical level, of course, you have to interact with different individuals and different species in a different way. But from a spiritual vision perspective, one sees actually all conscious living entities are part and parcels of the same Lord. Okay. Anything else? Okay, I think okay, Shraddha ji was mentioning about 27. I missed saying 27, is it? Prashanta manasam yenam yoginam sukhamuttamam upaiti shanta rajasam brahma bhutam akalmasham. The yogi whose mind is fixed on me verily attains the highest perfection of transcendental happiness. Is beyond the mode of passion. He realizes his qualitative identity with the Supreme and thus is free from all reactions to past deeds. I think we discussed this briefly though.
I think you just missed reciting it in Sanskrit, but you explained it in English.
Yeah, because I think the translation, yes. Yeah, maybe I didn't recite it. Prashantamanasam Dhyyanam Yoginam Sukham Uttamam. Uttama Sukha. Uttam means spiritual. Upaiti Shanta Rajasam. Yes. Rajasa or the materialistic desires become Shanta. Brahma Bhutam Akalmasham. One comes to the level of spiritual state of consciousness. Okay, anything else? So also we would like to take this opportunity. There are some devotees. We hope all of you are well and in good health, but unfortunately there are some devotees who are also getting infected by COVID and similar things. So we'd like all devotees to pray for all those devotees who are going through uh, such challenges. Yeah, that Krishna may help them recover fast and Krishna may give them the necessary strength so that they can overcome all difficulties. We'll pray to Lord Narasimha for that purpose. Okay, anything else? Any questions? So next chapter is going to be, the next class is going to be very interesting, because after Krishna described this process, Arjun was quite intrigued and he asked very interesting questions to Krishna. Beginning by, he's so surprised at why Krishna is telling a process which is so impractical. So impractical because Krishna, you started by saying go to forest, stay alone. Kind of processes is, how is it going to be practically possible for 99.999% of the population to follow this yoga? So what is there a hope? He asks a few other questions. So it's a very interesting conversation in the next class. So do tune in. Yeah. Okay. So I thank you all, and sorry for the slight delay. My Zoom was for some reason not coming up. So it took a few minutes to log in properly. So I will see you on Saturday. We will continue with our Bhagavatam classes. Okay, thank you very much. Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki Jai, Srila Prabhupada ki. Thank you.